UN Secretary General condemns outbreak of fighting in Sudan, calls for an immediate ceasefire to resolve crisis. Historic coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. US has seen over $90 billion private investment in EV battery manufacturing. ADB provides USD 230 million for flood rehabilitation in Bangladesh. Major shift in global governance to tackle current and looming challenges as climate crisis, UN report. 67 million children missed routine vaccines globally between 2019 and 2021 because of COVID-19, UNICEF. UN, African and Arab leaders to hold a virtual meeting to discuss ways to end hostilities in Sudan. Number of Afghans slipping into poverty nearly doubles to 34 million, says UN. Brazilian president calls for mediation to end war between Russia and Ukraine. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the outbreak of fighting in Sudan and called for an immediate ceasefire to restore calm and dialogue to resolve the crisis. He stressed that it is crucial for the fighting to stop to support those who need the most. The UN chief expressed concerns over the prevailing situation in African nation and said that fighting has led to a horrendous loss of life and further escalation would be devastating for the country and the region. He said that those with influence over the situation must use it to support efforts to end the violence. Guterres said this would help restore order and return to the path of transition. At least 185 people have been killed in 3 days of fighting between rival factions in Sudan, as per the United Nations Special Representative for that country. The outbreak of violence in Sudan over the weekend has trapped millions of lives in their homes, while supplies are running low in several areas. More than 6,000 men and women of the United Kingdom's armed forces will participate in the historic coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla next month, United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense said. In the largest military ceremonial operation for 70 years, sailors, soldiers, and aviators from across the UK and the breadth of Commonwealth will take part in two magnificent processions accompanying the King and Queen to and from Westminster Abbey, where the coronation service takes place. Military personnel will conduct a breathtaking coronation flypast later in the day, where more than 60 aircraft from Royal Navy, British Army, and Royal Air Force will fly over the mall in the central London. From military bases in all the corners of the country and on ships at sea, gun salutes will sound out to herald the moment when King is crowned. US President Joe Biden has said that the electric vehicle sales under his administration have tripled and proposing standards towards bringing down the carbon pollution. The United States of America is creating a network of 5 lakh EV chargers. He said that the country has seen over $90 billion private investment in EV battery manufacturing. Mr. Biden said that investing in clean energy and electric vehicles, it will create hundreds of thousands of new jobs and also combat climate change. He said that US is working towards building a clean energy future. The Asian Development Bank will provide a loan of USD 230 million to Bangladesh to help the rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts in the northeastern part of the country affected by devastating floods in May June 2022. The agreement between ADB and the government of Bangladesh was signed in Dhaka on Monday. Record rainfall in northeastern Bangladesh in May June 2022 caused massive flooding, especially in the low lying region, affecting 7.2 million people. The assistance under the Flood Reconstruction Emergency Assistance Project will help in reconstruction, improvement of resilience, and economic recovery of northeastern districts of Bangladesh. The project will address the climate change impacts by developing innovative climate resilient infrastructure under the Build Back Better principles in line with the government's National Adaptation Plan, said ADB country director. On 18th April 1980, Zimbabwe achieved independence from the United Kingdom. On 22nd April 1970, the Earth Day was first celebrated in US. Earth Day, founded by American politician and conservationist Gaylord Anton Nelson, helped spark the environment movement and quickly grew into an international event. A UN report says there has to be a major shift in global governance to better tackle such current and looming challenges as the climate crisis and the rising security threats. Launched by UN's High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism, a breakthrough for people and planet. Effective and inclusive global governance for today and the future outlines an ambitious plan to overhaul the global architecture. Co-chaired by former President of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and former Prime Minister of Sweden, Stefan Löfven. The advisory board was appointed by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in 2022, tasked with advising member states on issues of key global concern where better governance could make a difference. Mr. Löfven said that the future generation will judge us by the decisions we take today. Multilateralism can work, but it must work better and faster, he added. The people-centered recommendations aim to strengthen international cooperation and support accelerated implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement on climate change. Some 67 million children partially or fully missed routine vaccines globally between 2019 and 2021 because of lockdowns and healthcare disruptions caused by COVID-19 pandemic, the United Nations said. More than a decade of hard-earned gains in routine childhood immunization have been eroded, read a news report from UN's Children's Agency UNICEF, adding that getting back on track will be challenging. Of the 67 million children whose vaccinations were severely disrupted, 48 million missed out on routine vaccines entirely. UNICEF said, flagging concerns about potential polio and measles outbreaks. Vaccine coverage among children declined in 112 countries, and the percentage of children vaccinated worldwide slipped 5 points to 81%, a low not seen since 2008. Africa and South Asia were particularly hard hit. Vaccines save 4.4 million lives each year, a number the United Nations figures could jump to 5.8 million by 2030 if its ambitious targets to leave no one behind are met. Vaccines have played a very important role in allowing more children to live healthy and long lives. United Nations, African and Arab leaders will hold a virtual meeting to discuss ways to end hostilities in Sudan. In a statement, the UN chief spokesperson said, Secretary General Antonio Guterres continues efforts towards ensuring an end to the hostilities in Sudan. Mr. Guterres will hold discussion with AU chairperson, Secretary General of Arab League, the Executive Secretary of the East African Bloc, IGAD, and other relevant organizations to diffuse tension and restore peace in violence-hit Sudan. In the meantime, after the failure of Tuesday's evening truce attempt, thousands of civilians have fled Sudan's capital, and foreign nations are also trying to evacuate their citizens. Later, the army and its rivals, the paramilitary Rapid Support Force, separately announced a new 24-hour truce, but sporadic fightings are still unabated. Nearly 300 people have been killed, and at least 2,600 people have been injured so far in the past 5 days. The UN Health Agency said, but the toll is likely higher because many bodies lie uncollected in the streets. Volodymyr Zelensky, born on 25th January 1978, is a Ukrainian politician and former comedian and actor who has served as the sixth and current president of Ukraine since 2019. Zelensky announced his candidacy in 2019 presidential election on the evening of 31st December 2018. He won the election with 73.23% of vote. During his presidential campaign, Zelensky promised to end Ukraine's protracted conflict with Russia, and he has attempted to engage in dialogue with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The United Nations has said the number of Afghans in poverty nearly doubled to 34 million as the nation was racked by the collapse of US-backed government and the Taliban takeover. The United Nations Development Programme UNDP released a new assessment of 2022 data estimating 34 million Afghans are living below the poverty line. It said vast foreign subsidies were halted and aid programs drastically cut back after US-backed Republic fell in 2021, as many countries refused to deal with Taliban authorities in Kabul. Brazilian President Luiz Lula da Silva has said a coalition of neutral states must come together to help mediate a peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine. His remarks come after Russian President Vladimir Putin sparked outrage among Western allies over the weekend by claiming that they were extending the battle by supplying armaments to Ukraine. Mr. Lula has positioned himself as a peace mediator to resolve the war, which began in February 2022 when Russia invaded the neighboring country. His proposal, based on Brazil's legacy of non-intervention and neutrality, calls for a group of non-combatant states to hold discussions with both Russia and Ukraine.